Hello everyone, welcome to the second devlog in the series. I'm proud to announce that I recently completed Scrimba's Intro to React course. And to celebrate, I decided to work on a small project to test some of the concepts that I had come across in the course. Things like states, data mapping, event handlers, and useEffect. I wanted it to be something simple and interactive, so I decided to go for a little game like Tic-tac-toe. As simple as Tic-tac-toe can be, I had to really go through a lot of iterations to get something that I was proud of. I pretty much started the project without any prior plan as to how I was going to represent the state of the boxes or what other states were relevant or important to the functioning of the game. So I had to do a lot of code changes as I realized better ways to represent the state of the game. For example, I had a state called active player that was either set to 1 or 2 depending on which player was playing. I had to basically restructure that to a state called game state that was an object, and the object holds 3 values: active player, winner, and show line. Active player is now a string that tells me which player is currently playing, and winner tells me which player won, and the show line is basically a true or false to indicate whether or not to show the winning line. Overall, I think this process of just going ahead and just coding right away was actually a good thing. It's way better than my previous habit of sort of over planning things out before actually taking the first step to actually execute and actually make the game. Although it was a lot of refactoring, it helped me to really organize things and really see what works and what didn't work while I was making this project. The second thing that I sort of struggled with was separating code that belonged into certain components. So I realized that as I was writing my code, majority of the code that was supposed to be in the app component ended up in the board component, which was a very, very poor structure. So as soon as I realized this, I had to basically move a lot of code from my board component into my app component. At the end of the day, I was able to get my code base to sort of look a little bit clean and neat. One of the things I learned from kind of structuring my code this way allowed me to use things like props properly. So anytime I needed to modify something or change something, the board component can basically just handle that without any issues. Alright, difficulties aside, I actually learned something pretty interesting from working on this project, and that is animations. Animations is something I've been wanting to work with for a long time, and I finally had the chance to do it with this, and I actually love it. So if you notice, basically I have an SVG animation that plays anytime someone wins the game. Just a basic line that goes across the connections, basically the win. And I was able to achieve this using 3 things: the useRef hook, the useLayoutEffect hook, and the GSAP animation library. Basically, this is how it goes. The useRef hook allows me to grab a reference to the DOM element, in this case to grab a reference to the actual SVG line or the SVG element in my HTML. And the useLayoutEffect hook is very similar to the useEffect, but it runs synchronously. What does that mean? It basically runs after React has performed all the DOM changes, but before those DOM changes are rendered to the screen. So it's a very handy hook for animations because it ensures that your elements are ready and are updated before you actually animate them. And I animate them using the GSAP library. So that's pretty much the 1, 2, 3 punch to doing SVG animations. And the other animations that I also worked on in this game is, of course, the mouse hover animation that you see here. Anytime I hover my mouse over one of my boxes, it scales down and it scales back up when I leave. Basically, I accomplished that using the same 1, 2, 3 step with the useRef, but this time I used a useEffect hook, but I kept the GSAP library for my animations. And the reason I did this in a useEffect hook was because I basically added an event listener to all the div elements or the div boxes that you see over here. Basically on mouse enter telling it to scale down, and on mouse leave telling it to scale back up. Yeah, and that's basically how I add in event listeners to that. Overall, the game lacks any sort of cool or aesthetic design, but overall I'm proud of how it all came together. The goal of the project was really to focus on React and to get comfortable with some of the basics. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching this devlog, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.